Since I read an excerpt from Dr. Patrick Njoroge presentation in Washington in April, when you said M-Pesa had provided more change in people's lives than the iPhone in those 10 years, and some other excerpt from that presentation, I said, I hope Dr. Njoroge participates in this conference, so I'm very happy to have you here. Please come join us, and thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure having you here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Hugo and Leon, and of course the sponsors, M-Pesa, Transfer2, all the other sponsors. And I want to thank the conference organizers for the invitation and giving me this opportunity to interact with the distinguished participants. Frankly, we also feel particularly privileged to host the inaugural IMTC Africa conference in Nairobi. It is also equally significant for the East African region, which increasingly is viewed as an attractive destination for business and investments. This conference, therefore, provides an excellent opportunity to reflect on the important topics of remittances and cross-border payments, the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. These are the issues that I wanted to raise, and I am sure they will likely come up in your discussions, and I hope a way forward will be found. Not everything needs to go through the same filter. So this is where, again, one needs to learn and appreciate where your risks are greatest. It could be, as you know, in terms of the specific amounts, frequencies, or for that matter, specific clients, location of those or sources of those funds, and all that. I think here is where a lot is left to you or to the institutions concerned. The other direction is, of course, using technology. This is where we need a lot more innovation. Now, I know in other fora they talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence and things like that. Frankly, for me, the way I look at it is, and actually to us regulators, they talk about reg tech, reg tech. These are just big words. At the end of the day, it is just having an algorithm that actually learns how specific clients operate. So, and then when it deviates from that, then you will, raises a flag. We are not using technology enough in this area, frankly. And we are probably doing it the old-fashioned way, which is to use humans. But, humans get tired. Some of the transactions are at night. You don't have humans working then, or at least some humans. So I think there's more, the ball is actually in your court. It's also maybe for us to work together because that's really how we are going to cover the entire base. But I think the last point is we need to learn from each other. And this is why a discussion like this in this conference is so useful, because other institutions in other jurisdictions must be facing similar problems. And so you'll find out, how did you do it? And I think that's the way, and that's why we are supporting this sort of conferences, because there's a lot of peer learning that needs to take place. I hope I've answered your question, Raphael. No,
I think I just want to add that every time there's a technology company that comes along and is providing some type of service, we invite them to IMTC. Some of them are coming their way, but there are service providers coming. There are fintech companies, also another big word, which is so much used that we don't know what it means sometimes. But fintech companies are coming along with technology solutions for managing risk. It just takes time, but it's happening, and I've seen some good developments on that field.
It's just to thank you for introducing us to IMTC Africa. We have since had good engagements, especially with regards to the future.
So the centripetal forces in Africa are very strong. unlike, say, Europe, where you have the centrifugal forces kicking Greece out and UK out, and I don't know who is next. You know. So there's a sense, and it is driven by other objectives at the end. It's sort of political and those sort of cultural things, much more fundamental issues. So the economics will have to give way to that. So that's my first point. So we have to work to align ourselves with those objectives. Now, in Eastern Africa, there are very strong forces that are also pushing us together because we have this aspiration of being an East African community, one community. And these are the 5, actually now 6, including South Sudan, countries. And the objective there there are steps towards not only economic integration, but also political integration. Obviously, it will take time, and we are learning from other institutions or other, other institutions like the European community and so forth. So I just want to say that aside from the economics, there are those forces that are pushing us together. But what about the economic side of it? Really, the countries are small by themselves. Even Kenya is 45 million people, and you can cross from one side to the other, it takes an hour and a half on a flight, or driving, it should take, or even they're small countries. I mean, let's be honest. So it really makes sense to bring us together. So you could think of a consumer, not today, but maybe in 2 years or 10 years, who has business in Uganda. Why does this person have to go through all these protocols and not, in a sense, work? I mean, when he moves across border to Uganda, his phone, his transfers, his operations on money or banking and all that should move seamlessly there. I mean, there should be truly roaming, if you understand what I'm getting at. So this requires some sort of regionalization of protocols, or for that matter, regionalization, or bringing together the regulation, aligning the regulations in all the jurisdictions. In a sense, one could say you have one sort of basic regulation that we all ascribe to, we all subscribe to. But I think the point here is that it is beneficial to the consumer. It's also beneficial to you, the providers. One of our banks, and this isn't just a random number, not a random number, I would say it's a random bank, because I could have chosen any other bank. It has to deal with 7 regulators, 7 different regulators. We regulate it. They are across the border with in another jurisdiction, actually 3 other jurisdictions. There are regulators there. They have mobile money and all those other things, so there are regulators on that as well. So they also have to deal with the communication authority. The point I'm making is this sort of cacophony of regulators itself is a headache, and it will lead to increasing costs. So there's a need to align it. Now, I don't believe that that is where the greatest, I mean, that is the source of your largest costs. I would actually ask M-Pesa, I mean, the financial officer, to explain where his costs really are. And I'm sure he can explain it. This is business. But I don't believe it's regulation. But there is benefit in bringing together the regulators. And also the third point, last point on this is you also need, at this moment, you need to align yourself with what we call best practices. We are fighting the same battles. We all want our consumers to have the best services and at the same time minimizing various risks. We learn from each other. As a matter of fact, I would be, speaking very honestly, when I have a big problem, what do? I pick up the phone and talk to my fellow governors. I ask them, gee, what's happened? And I'm talking across the board, not just on remittances and things like that. Yeah, even on economic policy. And we are learning from each other. There's a lot to be gained from experiences of others and sharing those experiences. So I think that's really the direction I I would encourage all of us to work. And again, going back to the conference, this is really a time when you also compare what your regulators in your jurisdiction is doing and compare it with what regulators in other jurisdictions are doing. And maybe you write to your regulator and say, hey, you know, this thing is being done differently. And now, having said all that, I need to say one last thing, which is a lot has been said about how we in Kenya dealt with M-Pesa, right? Meaning there were things that maybe, even things about, well, things that we should have, in a sense, if we had to do it now, would have done them differently, right? This interoperability issue, which everybody keeps talking about. Yeah, it's true, but we were fast. There were no rules to follow. Those that are coming in our wake have learned from our experiences, and we are actually teaching them. We are very open about it. But if we had to do it again, would we wait so as to have a sort of a properly interoperable system? Actually look at the benefits that has happened. As you said, maybe I was exaggerating when I talked about the benefits from M-Pesa being greater than the iPhone, but I don't think I was exaggerating by too much. So the benefits from that, in terms of the economic benefits to the population, are huge. So if we had to do it again, I would do it in a flash, exactly like we did, meaning with the heck with interoperability. Let's get the people the service that they got, which has helped them, and then we'll resolve it, as we will in this case. So I just want to underscore that point of, at times there's some gray areas, and you may make bad decisions which in the benefiting from hindsight, but I don't think that should be something that stops you.
Regulators in many regions are working together. You have a country like the United States, you need 50 licenses to operate in the United States. And that's crazy for most people that come from the outside. The state regulators are working together, and this week they have their meeting in Savannah, Georgia, and which we couldn't attend because we were here. But the state regulators are trying to work together so the companies don't have to provide 50 different reports. Same thing in Latin America. In Europe, we've seen it. Yes, you can passport your license through the state. It's not as easy as it seems. Like Nova Cambios have experience going from Portugal and opening an office in Madrid, and took some months and months and months for the Banco de España to approve with a license that you can really passport. So it just takes time. You know, regulators, I know from experience they're making these efforts to work together, but it's a complex issue, yes? And yes, we as an industry should keep on pushing, keep on pushing, because we know that if we move the regulators in that way, we can provide better services for the consumers, and we can integrate more this very big world of ours. I just wanted to add that. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your words. And